The ocean sits higher than the city below it, because the city rests inside a depression carved out of the land. Right now, the sea surface is roughly 7 meters above the head of a man walking through that city, with only a single wall between them. By rights, more than a quarter of this nation should be submerged, yet 17 million people build their lives on that reclaimed ground. A street that lay 3 meters underwater during the 1953 catastrophe now sees a mother pushing a stroller past quiet storefronts. Overhead, a cargo ship glides along a channel that sits above the nearby motorway, and maritime law grants that vessel the right-of-way over the road beneath it. The explanation lies in 9 kilometers of steel and concrete built to hold the North Sea at bay, engineered in an era when a single computer filled an entire room. 2 mechanical arms, each wider than the Eiffel Tower is tall, swing into position with no human hand guiding them. This is not simply a story of stopping the sea. It is the story of a nation that reached into the water and lifted an entire province out of it with shovels. Geography made the Netherlands a target. The North Sea functions like a funnel, and nearly every major storm system is channeled directly toward the Dutch coastline. On the night of January 31st, 1953, a storm formed south of Iceland and set an unerring course for that coast. By 4 in the morning, the dikes had failed while entire villages lay asleep, unaware of what was coming. 1,836 people never woke again. In a single night, 150,000 hectares of land vanished beneath the water, and one village alone lost 305 residents before daybreak. In the chaos, a mayor ordered a ship's captain to deliberately ram his vessel into a failing dike, an act of desperation credited with saving 3 million lives downstream. 17 days after the floodwaters receded, the Dutch government issued a single vow: this would never happen again. This time, there would be a plan. One engineer had spent 2 decades warning of exactly this danger, and every one of his reports had been dismissed. He died before he ever saw his warnings taken seriously. What followed was almost unthinkable in its ambition, shortening the national coastline by 700 kilometers through structures that had never before been attempted. The first phase called for a 32-kilometer wall built in a straight line directly across open, violent ocean water. On one side would remain the untamed North Sea. On the other, a newly created, calm freshwater lake.
I proposed a single dam to seal off the entire Zuiderzee. At the time, critics called the idea totally absurd. Ultimately, 10,000 laborers, 27 dredging vessels, and 4 separate construction sites working simultaneously from the middle of the sea outward brought the vision to life. 36 million cubic meters of material went into the effort. Beginning with woven willow mats sunk into the seabed in open water. Because without that foundation layer, the clay used for construction would simply wash away. Shipworms later ate through the timber foundations from within, leaving hollow wood and corroded steel behind. Engineers replaced the rotted wood with a mineral compound resistant to salt water, and rebuilt sections by hand through the winter, directly in the sea. Using basalt, one of the hardest volcanic rocks available, stacked piece by piece along the exposed face of the structure. As the final gap in the dam narrowed to 5 meters, the tide ran at 5 knots, and the crews had only one opportunity to close it for good. They waited for slack water, the brief moment when the tide pauses before reversing, because that pause was their only viable window. The current fought them the entire time as barges continued dumping material. And the gap shrank meter by meter, 30, then 10, until it closed completely. An entire inland sea had been cut off from the ocean in a single afternoon, marked by nothing more than a flag planted at the closure point. The finished wall measured 90 meters wide at its base, finally locking out a sea that had pushed against this coastline since 1932. But sealing the water out was only half the ambition. The area that would become a new province was still open water as late as 1940. And it took 27 years to pull it from beneath the lake. The method involved encircling a section of the lake with a ring-shaped dike, and then draining the water from within, a technique that had never been executed on this scale before. As pumps ran continuously inside the ring, the water level dropped centimeter by centimeter, gradually exposing a seabed that had not seen daylight in 10,000 years, its surface resembling images of the Martian landscape.
Reeds took root there not because anyone planted them, but because the wind carried the seeds naturally as the soil dried,
A process the engineers had anticipated and planned around. Fields that now sit 5 meters below sea level are kept dry by drainage ditches that operate around the clock, without exception. A tractor now crosses ground that, only a year earlier, lay beneath open water, land that engineers effectively willed into existence. German forces flooded this same land deliberately in 1945, forcing engineers to drain it a second time out of necessity rather than choice. Roads were built before the houses, and farmland was surveyed and measured before a single resident had arrived. That reclaimed land, however, began sinking almost immediately, because draining clay soil causes it to compact and settle. The engineers had, in effect, created a new problem through solving the old one. The solution was to avoid over-draining the land and instead retain some moisture within the soil, since controlled compaction prevents further sinking over time. An entire city was designed and planned before the ground beneath it had even fully dried, and it was then built exactly according to that plan. 3 pumping stations installed during this project have operated continuously since 1942 without a single stoppage. If they were ever to fail, the surrounding farmland would flood once again. For generations, families were literally born on boats, floating above what is now dry farmland. A reminder that this entire province was pulled from the mud by human hands.
But nature pushed back against these reclamation efforts, ultimately forcing the country to seal off its coastline entirely.
The first of these sealing structures was completed in 1960, and every lesson learned in its construction was later applied to far larger projects along the coast.
The construction method involved building massive concrete structures on land, floating them out to sea, and sinking them precisely into position, a process Dutch coastline. Dock doors would open, seawater would rush in, and a caisson weighing 5,000 tons would float free and head out to open water.
Sinking such a structure into place was far from simple. 4 tugboats straining against the tide made that abundantly clear.
One major complication arose when the current caused a caisson to begin spinning uncontrollably as it approached its final position.
To counter this, seabed anchors had been dropped in advance,
and cables attached to them held the structure steady as it descended straight down into place. Steel cables were strung across the open estuary. Workers dropped rock-filled skips carrying tons of fill material into the racing current below. Sealing off these sea inlets completely, however, threatened to destroy the marine ecosystems living within them. This realization led engineers to a radical decision: abandon the original plan for solid, permanent dams and start over. Over the course of 10 years and at a cost of $2.4 billion, each successive dam was completed faster than the one before it, with
Solid, permanent dams would have wiped out marine life entirely, according to local shellfish farmers who depended on those waters for their livelihood. Eventually, solid dams were completed everywhere except for one final 9-kilometer gap, through which the sea continued to surge twice daily with the tides. What followed was among the most ambitious engineering undertakings ever attempted, moving massive steel gates across 9 kilometers of open sea. A single gate, measuring 42 meters across, could be lowered into position in just 75 minutes, sealing off the ocean.
Designed to remain open under normal conditions and close only during storms, a system with no precedent anywhere in the world. Producing one pier per month, the team spent 5 years casting components on that artificial island, with gate guide slots cast into concrete to millimeter-level precision. Concrete mattresses weighing 5,500 tons each were placed on the seabed 30 meters down, positioned within 20 centimeters of their intended target.
2 custom-built ships, constructed solely for this project and never used again afterward, were each capable of lifting 20,000 tons.
The construction technique required formwork that climbed continuously as concrete hardened beneath it, allowing each pier to grow upward without interruption. To position a finished pier, one of the specialized ships would sink its own deck, allow the pier to float over it, and then rise back up. At one point, engineers discovered a 15-meter void beneath one of the foundations, a single miscalculation that nearly derailed the entire project. Grout was pumped through pipes to fill the gap, and once sensors confirmed the foundation was solid, the pier was safely lowered into its final position and the crisis was resolved.
The barrier's 62 gates, each 42 meters wide and weighing 480 tons, had to be hung between the concrete piers out in open water.
Threaded into position with only 50 millimeters of clearance on either side, using a floating crane.
Each gate operates independently on a single motor and spindle, requiring no external power connection, and includes a manual override in case its control system fails.
When storms strike now, they meet concrete and steel. After 38 years of continuous operation, the barrier's hydraulic systems are showing their age, requiring ongoing maintenance, even as the sea never stops testing them. The structure has been activated roughly 30 times over those 38 years, and the storm tide has lost. While that barrier protected Zeeland, Rotterdam faced an even more complex threat, one demanding a machine that did not yet exist anywhere in the world. Europe's engineers were given 6 years to solve the problem. Their solution? Hollow floating gates, a deceptively simple description of an extraordinarily complex system. Construction began with excavating concrete pits on opposite banks of one of the busiest shipping lanes in Europe. In 1991, each gate required 210 meters of welded steel, capable of floating when flooded and sinking on command, both operating in precise sequence. A steel truss spanning 237 meters was engineered with a single purpose: to transfer every ton of force from the North Sea to
The ball joints used in this design, manufactured in the Czech Republic, remain the largest of their kind ever built, measuring 10 meters across.
That joint allows an arm weighing 6,100 tons to swing freely. When the dock gate opens and the river floods in, 800-ton mass of steel begins to float. During an early test, the gate floated 340 millimeters out of level across its 210-meter length, a discrepancy serious enough to threaten the entire. Engineers addressed this using 26 internal ballast compartments, each individually adjustable, redistributing weight until the structure just 15 millimeters across its full span.
A computer system, rather than any human operator, now controls the entire barrier. No one presses a button to close it. when water levels 3 meters above normal.
And, roughly 2 hours later, the river is sealed, all without a single human decision in the process. During closure, each arm swings across. With this system in place, the North Sea finally met a defense equal to its power. So engineers developed something entirely different for them, into 10-meter walls.
Through 90 years of continuous engineering effort, refined project by project, the Netherlands secured its survival. There have been 0 flood deaths,